I'm Ann Dark.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
Hello and welcome to episode 157 of A Dark and Stormy Book Club. And today, top of the morning to ya. In honor of St. Paddy's Day, we're going to do our Irish book roundup. And the first book I have is called A Murder in Connemara. It is a home to Ireland mystery by Carlene O'Connor, and it is put out by Kensington Books. Former New Yorker Tara Meehan has moved back to her family home in Connemara, Ireland. She is going to open a store in Galway, Ireland that sells architectural salvage from abandoned homes and farms and old homesteads around Galway. She's calling her shop Renewals. Well, the first day she's there, she goes to a ruin of a home. In the yard, as you do, she finds a dead body lying in the yard. So she calls the police. That's the end of that. She's in the midst of preparations when all of a sudden into her store, this very brazen woman arrives named Veronica O'Farrell. She's an heiress. She's announcing she wants to do some renewal of her own. She's celebrating 1 year of sobriety, and she's invited 7 people that she's wronged in the past when she was drinking to her very historic home, actually used to be a castle, in neighboring Connemara to make amends to these people. Somebody's not so eager to pardon her past. Veronica's found lying in the ruins of the manor house of Clifton Castle with an antique Tara brooch buried in her heart. The same brooch Tara Meehan admired in her shop the day before. She posted a picture of the brooch on her website saying, "Killer Brooch." Now she's the prime suspect, along with all of Veronica's guests, all of whom had motives to stab the heiress, and it's up to Tara to pin down guilty party. This is a fun read. It was a lot of twists and turns. The underlying story is one of forgiveness and revenge. It's set in a beautiful part of the world. It was very well done. Carlene O'Connor is the best-selling author of the highly acclaimed Irish Village Mysteries and the Home to Ireland series. She comes from a long line of Irish storytellers. Her great-grandmother immigrated from Ireland filled with tales in 1897, and the stories have been flowing ever since. Of all the places she's wandered, she fell most in love with the walled town in County Limerick and was inspired to create the town of Kilbane, County Cork. Carlene currently divides her time between Chicago and Ireland, and you can find her and her books at carleneoconnor.net. She has a Facebook page at Carlene O'Connor Mysteries.
Sounds very good.
It was a fun read. I enjoyed it a lot.
And did you think it had quite a bit of Irish flair to it?
Yes, there's a lot of descriptions of the countryside and the castles. It brought back memories of my trip to Ireland also. And the castles with the ruins. We passed so many castles, it was like, oh, there's castle such and such.
As a lot of Europe is.
Yes. Ireland is one of the most colorful places I have ever been. I've never seen a whole countryside so green. Just takes your breath away. And then there's the gorse bushes, which are bright yellow. Everything's just so bright, it just shines. I can't say enough about Ireland.
Well, my book is The Killer in Me by Olivia Kiernan. It is the second in the Frankie Sheehan mystery series.
Death is no stranger to Detective Chief and Superintendent Frankie Sheehan. She isn't the only one from her small coastal suburb to be intimately acquainted with it. Years ago, teenager Sean Hennessy shocked the tight-knit community when he was convicted of the brutal murder of his parents and attempted slaying of his sister. Though he always maintained his innocence, now Sean is finally being released from prison. But when his newfound freedom coincides with discoveries of two bodies, the alleged connection between the cases only serves to pull Frankie further from answers, even as it draws her closer to her town's hidden darkness. With a television documentary revisiting Sean's sentence, pushing the public's sympathies into conflict on a weekly basis, a rabid media presence pressures the police like never before. And a rising body count, Frankie will need all her resources if she's not only going to catch a killer, but put to rest what really happened all those years ago.
This book I listened to on audio, and it's put out by Penguin Audio. The narrator was Shelley Atkinson. In this book, two bodies are discovered in a church. Geraldine Shine and her husband Alan, who happens to be dressed as a priest, but he is not one, are brutally murdered within this church. Geraldine had apparently called the police to report Alan for domestic abuse, and he had recently moved out of the house. She reported to the Garda her house had been broken into. She also let them know that her and Alan had split up, but he still had a key to the house. Didn't make much sense for him to break in when he could have just used his key. Frankie and her team processed the Shine house after they processed the church, because there was a lot going on at that church as far as blood samples and just a nasty mess. In the Shine house, they had found a single drop of blood on the kitchen floor, but they also found debris and a footprint on the windowsill, a boot print. Upon further inspection, they also found a shirt hanging in the closet. It was one of Geraldine's shirts that was covered in blood, but it was hung back up within her clothes.
Very neat murder.
Yeah, it was kind of strange. The autopsy showed that Alan actually had freezer burn on him, showing that he had been killed first and stored within a freezer. His cause of death was strangulation. Geraldine's cause of death was a slit throat, and she had stab wounds down her back that showed somebody was very upset with Geraldine. Oh, and those stab wounds were post-mortem, so after she had already died. There is another story in here about Sean Hennessy. He was accused of murdering his parents 17 years previously. He had just gotten out of prison, but the whole entire time he was in prison, he professed his innocence, as they do.
As you would.
Yep. Since he had just gotten out of prison for murder, and this town is Clontarf, Ireland. It's a small town, not a lot of murderers running around. So
I don't know. There's an awful lot of murders everywhere.
So anyway, I think we read too many murder mysteries. But anyway, so he becomes kind of their target. But he has an alibi that he went to a fish and chip shop and got an order and sat on a bench outside the store. And the owner of the shop verified that, yes, he was sitting out in front of the shop. They also interview Father Healy, who is the priest of this church, because he was out of the picture during the day, so they wanted to know where his whereabouts were. Well, he ended up having an alibi also. He was in a bar drinking. The barkeep verified that he was definitely in the bar during the hours. Well, as the story progresses, another body turns up, and I don't want to go into too much detail because I'm hoping you take the time to read this book because it had a lot of Irish flair. It was just a very well done mystery. And also, if you like police procedurals, oh my goodness, is this your cup of tea? Olivia did such a good job of taking you there, and every little part was analyzed the DNA and everything. It was just so well done. Frankie, as the protagonist of the story, is a very strong character, but I do feel like I missed something by not reading the first in the series, which was called Too Close to Breathe. I will definitely be going back to check that out. This was the second in the series, and this came out in 2019. The third book has already come out. It came out last summer, and it is called If Looks Could Kill. Olivia Kiernan grew up in the Irish countryside, a background that left her with a great appreciation for storytelling. Being almost sensible, she shelved aspirations of becoming a writer and embarked on a career in science, spending 6 years studying anatomy and physiology before receiving a BSc in chiropractic in 2003. She worked in this vein for over a decade, always writing in the evenings and on weekends, and completing her MA in creative writing in 2012. In 2015, she began writing Too Close to Breathe as part of the National Novel Writing Month, polishing off half of the draft at the end of the month-long writing marathon. After hiding the manuscript on her hard drive for close to a year, she sent it to an agent. Within a month, she was signed with a literary agent and had sold the book.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool. Her website is Olivia Kiernan, KIERNAN.com. So go there to check out all 3 of the books in this series. You will not be disappointed.
Okay. My third book is A Keeper by Graham Norton. Have you ever heard of Graham Norton?
Yeah, I know who Graham Norton is.
Graham Norton has a mystery out, and it was released by Simon & Schuster. It's not a traditional mystery. It is a suspense thriller.
We cover those also.
It's a story of secrets, ill-fated love, and it follows a young woman as she returns to Ireland after her mother's death, tries to unravel the mystery of her father. Elizabeth Keene is an American. She was raised by a single mother. She never knew who her father was. Her mother kind of instilled in her the Catholic guilt. Yes. She wasn't that close with her mother, but she still loved her. But she was very happy over in the United States, away from the Irish coast. But when her mother died, she returns to settle her mother's affairs and to go through the house and get rid of her mother's stuff or donate it and put the house up for sale. Well, when she gets there, the house is as she remembers it. Nothing really has changed. Of course, her mother is not there. She starts going through her mother's things, but she's a little reticent. She feels like she's a teenager.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to be touching
Mom's stuff.
She's going to yell at me.
Right. She takes some things. She has a cousin in the town. Her mother's brother runs the family business, which is a department store. She talks to them about getting rid of some of the stuff. They told her, well, maybe they'll buy the house from her. She's not quite thrilled about that, but as she's going through the house, she's cleaning out things, and she goes to her mother's wardrobe. And one of the things she finds in there is a box. And when she opens the box, it's filled with letters. And the letters are from a man. She's reading the...
Not a man!
A man. She discovers that this man who wrote the letter, apparently her mother was very lonely, and she wrote to a Lonely Hearts column. And this man wrote back to her. They started a little correspondence, made plans to meet. Well, then the story changes from Elizabeth to her mother. It's her mother's story, just about from then on, about how she met this man. As she reads, a young woman stumbles from a remote stone house, the night quiet except for the constant wind that encircles her as she hurries deeper into the darkness, away from the cliff and the sea. She has no sense of where she's going, only that she must